The housing market in the US over the years has shifted stability multiple times. In more recent years, we can see a sharp increase in housing prices and the impact they play on us. In California, we can see a dramatic increase in housing prices, not just here in the Bay Area, but in rural areas as well. We can see housing prices in rural areas rising to the $1 million range thanks to the aftermath of the pandemic. Based on previous trends, we predict that the housing market in the Bay Area will continue to plateau with a slight rise before a sudden drop in the housing market. Over the past few years, we've seen major ups and downs in the stability of the housing markets. We can also follow the housing market through major economic shifts like the Great Depression, World War II, and more recently, the 2008 housing crisis. Let's begin with the Great Depression. According to encyclopedia.com, housing values dropped by 35% during the Great Depression, meaning that a house worth $6,000 before 1929 would be worth almost $4,000 by 1932. Next is World War II. The U.S. Department of Housing states that World War II caused a temporary standstill in the housing construction, but after the war had finished, there was actually a major increase in this area with the growth of suburban areas.
After the war, William J. Levitt had the idea for a mass-produced suburb, Levittown. These all-white neighborhoods popped up on New York's Long Island from 1947 to 1951 with the promise of cheap and abundance of housing.
Finally is the 2008 housing crisis.
Watching us from the last home you'll ever own tonight, consider yourself lucky. Same goes for anyone ready to buy a slice of the American dream. But if you're among the millions trying to sell, this was a very bad day. The National Association of Realtors reported the worst month-to-month drop in existing home sales since they started keeping track in the late 90s. And compared to last year, closings are down more than 25%. So if there is a sign in your yard tonight, is there anything you can do beyond hoping and waiting?
Investopedia describes the 2008 crash as a financial institutions failing. And not only that, but Harvard Business Review analyzes the 2008 meltdown as the banks failing that had the U.S. government intervene to prevent them from failing.
Housing during major events like these can allow us to study the prices and demand that an economic crash or world war can play on the housing market. More recently, we can study the demand that housing will play on the Silicon Valley and the surrounding Bay Area. According to BBC, Meta has made 10,000 new job cuts with their new layoffs. Currently, in Menlo Park, the median sales price is around $3 to $3.5 million as of this year, and before the pandemic was around 1.6 to 2.5 million. Over the pandemic, we saw 250,000 residents between 2020 and 2022, or a 3.2% decline in residents in the Bay Area, according to the San Francisco Standard. Over the pandemic, we can see the dramatic change of housing demand in California versus those in Texas. When companies like Tesla had left the Bay Area and left to Texas, a lot of Californians had left to Austin, for example. In 2021, Austin's median home price surged 35% in May compared to the prior year, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. Even here in California, we can see a lot of change in demand in our housing. For example, in Hollister, before the pandemic, the median sale price of Hollister homes was around $500,000, but now has a high of $800,000 for a median sales price. The high demand of housing in Hollister, for example, can allow the city to industrialize, offering more jobs and more opportunities, making Hollister a more affordable and ideal place for residents to live, compared to the Bay Area that has to deal with high demand of housing, but not affordable housing. Throughout many years, there have been multiple factors that have played deep impact on the housing market. In today's world, although the same factors aren't as present, we can still see a shift in the market with new factors. As time progresses, we'll continue to see a shift in the housing market for years to come. The housing market in the US has had a dramatic shifts in the past, and it's not uncommon to see them again in the future.